Good evening, America. Welcome to the Thursday edition of Just the News, No Noise. We hope you had a wonderful and blessed Christmas. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you, as always, from Washington, D.C. in the wiredtofishcoffee.com studios. Wired to Fish Coffee, as you know, the official coffee of Just the News. And you can go right now and start the New Year's off on the right foot. Get yourself a couple bags of wiredtofishcoffee.com, plus a 20% discount on everything in their store, including their stylish tumblers, the new Just the News tumbler. Go check that out, their mugs, and their Christmas ornaments. They're good people. Go check it out. Point your camera at that QR code if you need to. All right, we begin tonight's discussion with several reminders of just how unstable the world has become in the final days of Joe Biden's presidency. Western officials say tonight they are investigating whether Russian air defense systems brought down a jetliner of civilians from Azerbaijan. It's the latest in a long line of casualties in the three-year war that has rocked Europe. Meanwhile, Israel launched a massive offensive today designed to degrade the capabilities of the Iran-backed Houthi rebels, I call them terrorists actually, who have terrorized the Middle East shipping lanes for months now. And Finland, well, it just announced it's boarded an oil tanker it believes is part of a secret effort by Russia to cut undersea internet and phone cables, disrupting communications to Western countries. We're going to keep a close eye on all three of those hotspots tonight. Meanwhile, State Department and U.S. intel documents published today by Just the News outline fresh concerns that the rebels who ousted Syrian strongman Bashar al-Assad a few weeks ago have long concerned American officials because of deep ties to terrorism groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS and the Al-Nusra Front. The documents show U.S. intelligence believes the rebel group known as HTS, which now has effective control of Damascus, has engaged in killings, bombings, torture, kidnapping, and even the forced military enlistment of children. All of these are in violation of human rights standards, according to the documents. Now, the U.S. has considered HTS a terrorist group for about a decade now. You can check out those documents over at Just the News and see exactly why that is and why there's a lot of concern about what lies ahead for that country. We're going to dive deeper into those issues in a second, starting with our first guest, former Deputy National Security Advisor, Victoria Coates. But first, I'll check with my amazing co-host, Amanda Head, who's down in Alabama. Amanda, how are you? Happy day after Christmas.
Yes, happy Boxing Day. As you know, I'm married to a Commonwealther, and so those folks, the Brits and the Canadians and the Australians celebrate Boxing Day. So happy Boxing Day to everyone. Yes, I'm looking forward to talking to Victoria Coates because I know that the situation in Syria is not black and white, but there certainly seems to be a lesser of two evil scenario going on. It's just whether or not we can trust the voices coming out of HTS as far as what they want to do, being the opposition to Bashar al-Assad, and if things will actually improve there. So I'm looking forward to chatting with her.
Yeah, so much going on. Favorite moment for me on Christmas Day, America First Legal put out some new photos, Amanda. Joe Biden with Hunter Biden meeting President Xi in 2013. That's that famous December 2013 trip where Hunter Biden went on Air Force Two, met his business partners there. His father met with the business partners. We now have confirmed, Just the News reporting visually, photographically, that Joe Biden did in fact bring his son, there you go, Hunter Biden, to meet with President Xi. At that point, the brand new leader of China. Pretty odd for a father and president to bring their son along for such a trip when other higher ranking U.S. officials might have benefited from the relationship. But that is just how the Biden family did their work over the few years. We'll be able to ask a lot of folks about that, but you're seeing those pictures today.
And
no
doesn't
surprise
that
to you.
nestle so cozily within that 11-year pardon window?
Yeah, exactly. That actually falls outside the pardon window. 2 months before.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah, December 2013.
Excellent.
Maybe Joe Biden will have to go back and amend that after these photos came out. But fun little factoid and confirmation of some of our reporting here at Real America's Voice and Just the News. All right, as I mentioned, Amanda, at the top of the show, former Deputy National Security Advisor Victoria Coates is joining us. She right now serves as the Vice President of the Heritage Foundation's Institute for National Security and Foreign Policy. She's on the phone. We're so lucky to have her. And she's got a brand new book out, The Battle for the topical, given tonight's actions with Israel. Victoria, Merry Christmas. Good to have you on the show. Let's see if we, Victoria, you there? Can I hear you? Let's see if we got you there.
I am.
There you are. Okay, I lost you for a second on audio. My apologies.
Sorry about that.
No. Good to have you on. Merry Christmas. I want to start with a little bit of today's news developments. One of those really, I think, related to your great book, Israel not waiting for other Western countries to step in the void and degrade the Houthi rebels' continued military operations. They took it upon themselves today to take some pretty big strikes. Good news for the Western world, bad news for Iran and its rebels. Your thoughts about what's going on there?
No, this is very necessary work that Israel's doing, and we should have been doing it really for the last 4 years, as the Houthi have been menacing commercial shipping through the Red Sea. And they shot a drone at Tel Aviv yesterday, on Christmas Day, which happened to be the first day of Hanukkah. And so that was their gift, was a killer drone shooting toward Tel Aviv. And Israel was like, absolutely not. And so instead of kind of pussyfooting around, as we've been doing for the last 4 years, they're taking the fight to the Houthi. They're degrading them, and they're going after, most importantly, John, Iranian assets in Yemen. And so the IRGC officers, the supply chains, that's what they're disrupting. So they are literally doing the Lord's work. We should be thanking them. We should be helping them.
Yeah, we should be helping them.
Victoria, I want to ask you about what's to come regarding whatever ceasefire conversation is taking place, because what I have continuously heard from advocates for Israel is that any type of ceasefire agreement is really just a ceasefire for Israel, because you rarely have the other side that is going to comply, in this case, at least specifically Hamas, but you still have an outstanding 100 hostages. So do you anticipate that those are good faith arguments on the other side? And if so, where does this end up?
No, Amanda, there are no good faith arguments on the other side. And what we've heard over the last 24 hours, I think, is really shocking, which is Hamas cannot provide a list of the living hostages. They don't know who they are, and they don't know where they are. There have been disturbing reports over the last year that the hostages have been sold between different terrorist groups in Gaza. It is primarily Hamas, but certainly not exclusively Hamas. So they don't. Netanyahu said today the right thing, which is they give us a list first, then we talk about a ceasefire. What Hamas is saying is, give us a ceasefire, then maybe we can get you a list, which is impossible right now. None of that should be the case. And President Trump was 100% correct. They all come out by Inauguration Day, or there's hell to pay. That's the message that they should be getting, not that this is some kind of negotiated situation right now.
Yeah. Hamas isn't in a good position to negotiate any longer. It's so degraded. Speaking of President Trump, he had a rather busy day on social media yesterday. I was amused watching the media's reaction to it as he talked about maybe making Canada the 51st state, buying Greenland, maybe reclaiming control of the Panama Canal. A lot of people thought, oh, these are just musings and crazy stuff. But to me, when I look at it and some of the other things he's been saying, it looks to me like he's trying to define a new geography for the defense of America in Western democracies. He's changing the map and the way we look at the map. Am I misreading what he's been talking about?
Well, I mean, I don't want to speak for him, but what I would say, John, is that, yes, he's talking about Latin America. He's talking about North America. He's talking about our neighborhood in the Atlantic Ocean. So these are strategic areas that the United States needs to have dominant influence over. And start with the Panama Canal. That was President Reagan. Originally, that was the hallmark of his 1976 primary campaign. It's ours. We paid for it. And that is all true. It was President Carter who subsequently just unilaterally gave it back to Panama. We pay exorbitant fees. Meanwhile, Panama has gone into agreements with China for special economic zones on either side of the canal. That's intolerable. All that has to change. And for Canada, I mean, which should be a great partner to the United States, hopefully they'll be under new leadership next month. And we can talk about that, but also a great natural resource producer with the United States, Canada, sort of working in tandem. We could really dominate world energy markets. And, I think that there could be all sorts of discussions of what that would look like. And then finally, Greenland, again, home to extraordinary natural resources. And it's a situation where their host government, which is actually the government of Denmark, would be interested in a collaborative arrangement with the United States. Think about Aramco, for example, in Saudi Arabia, how successful that was of a partnership between Saudi and the United States. The AM in Aramco stands for America, that you can develop resources that way and keep China out. And so there are all sorts of reasons that the former and now president-elect should be talking about these places. These are all direct interests for national security for America. And thank heaven he's doing it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
For each of these locations, I know was it earlier today or yesterday, President Trump announced his appointment for the ambassador to Panama. For each of these locations, how important is it to have an ambassador who stands on the same side as the president with respect to these foreign interests? And does that ambassador role play a huge part in these types of agreements or future relations?
It's very significant. And up until now, my dear friend George Glass, who was our ambassador to Portugal and is going to be our ambassador to Japan, has been in charge of putting together President Trump's political ambassadors. And Panama traditionally has been a career foreign service appointment for the State Department. And if you ask the State Department, they will tell you with tears in their eyes, Amanda, that this is, a historically career position. You couldn't possibly put a political in it. And God bless President Trump and the people running the transition for saying, no, this is a critical post. That post needs a line back to the Oval, not to the foggy bottom. Thank you very much. And to the career bureaucracy at the state, because we're going to be negotiating some serious things. And so I would love to see a much higher percentage. We were blessed by our political ambassadors in the first term. You think of David Friedman in Jerusalem. You think of David Fisher in Morocco. And John Rakolta in UAE. These are the ambassadors who got us the Abraham Accords. So Bill Haddon in Japan should be doing is putting compliant politicals.
It looks like we may have lost Victoria there. Amanda, I just want to, I think what Victoria was talking about is so important, not only disrupting the map, but disrupting the traditions of the State Department to get better results in these countries where career officials often haven't pushed the envelope in the American direction. It seems that that's where President Trump, I think, has gone the last 2 days. Christmas was a very busy day for President Trump. It was really pretty remarkable.
I know. Typically, this time between Christmas and New Year's, at least in the political news space, is kind of no man's land. But that President Trump has not allowed there to be a dull moment. I'm going to be very interested to see what happens with these ambassador roles because, I mean, like Victoria said, these are typically positions where you don't hear a ton of news out of the embassies of foreign countries unless it's in a conflict zone. So President Trump having these new ideas, putting them out there on Twitter. I mean, we all saw the pushback from the leader of Panama with regards to the Panama Canal. There are going to be fireworks flying all the way up until January 20th and then even more so after that.
Yeah. Well, folks, I'm sorry we lost Victoria there, but she's got this fantastic book. If you haven't grabbed it, it is a must read if you want to understand what's going on and why Netanyahu himself, the Prime Minister of Israel, went out on his own. It's called The Battle for the Jewish State, How Israel and America Can Win. I think what Victoria just said really summarized that the U.S. was afraid to do in the Middle East. They're making the region more safe with its war against Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. All right, we're going to have more in just a few minutes, including about those hostages we were talking about in Gaza. We'll get to that issue right after these messages from our great partners here at Real America's Voice and Just the News. We'll be right back. Hey, America, Donald Trump has done it again. And with his presidential victory and a red wave sweeping the House and Senate, conservatives are back in the driver's seat. But as the fight to restore America begins, now is not the time to get complacent. That's a good piece of advice. You have the chance to be part of this movement, not just as a voter, but as a member of a powerful organization that takes its marching orders directly from you. AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. I'm a card-carrying member. AMAC is the conservatives' alternative to the AARP. We stand for faith, family, and freedom, and we're fighting for the values that make America great. Join AMAC today for only $1 for your first year. What a great deal. That's right, you heard me, $1, but don't wait. The special offer ends on December 31st. Donald Trump is building his team, and you can be part of it. Join AMAC today and help us continue the fight for a brighter, freer future. Claim your $1. mac.us/justnews. Together, we can keep the momentum going.
Welcome back, everybody. While staying on the topic of the Middle East and specifically Israel, let's stay right there because there are still hostages yet to be released, and Hamas can't even name many of them. They don't even know where many of them are. So a great time to bring in our guest. She is Liz Hirsch-Naftali. She is a Gaza hostage advocate whose very own niece, Abigail Mor-Idan, was taken by Hamas and released about a year ago. And she has a new book out called Saving Abigail. Liz, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good to have you.
Liz, I see that precious face on the cover of that book, and I think to myself, you know, what type of group, what type of ideology, what type of theology snatches up 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds, babies, and holds them hostage? Here still we are. Tell us about your book and what it meant to you to write that.
Well, first, you said what kind of people? These are terrorists. Hamas is a terrorist, fundamental Islamic terrorist organization. And they broke in, invaded Israel on October 7th, 2023. And they didn't just take Abigail, they took 35 children under the age of 18. So they took infants, they took children, they took 246 people, they took 12 Americans that day. They just kidnapped them after killing thousands. But why I wrote this book, Saving Abigail, was so that people could understand the truth of what happened in Israel on October 7th. The truth of what happened to this beautiful little girl, my great niece, Abigail, who witnessed the murder of both her parents. She was in her father's arms when he was killed by Hamas terrorists. And then he was taken hostage for 51 days. And so I wanted people to know the truth about what happened to Abigail and what happened to so many people in Israel when Hamas invaded.
Yeah, so important. And I think some people, they get their family member back and maybe they're just relieved and they stop there, but you haven't rested a day since October 7th. Tell us a little bit about the pressure you're able to bring and what you see on the horizon as a presidential administration change occurs here in America.
Well, the first part is, yes, I could have gone home and said, Abigail's safe and thank God. And really, thank God she is safe. But on that day, her parents were both murdered. Her mother was an American, so one of 46 Americans who were kidnapped. And I spend most of the time, I advocate a lot here in America with the American families, and there are 7. I just like to remind Americans here today who are listening, there are 7 Americans. There's one young man who's turning 20. His birthday's this weekend, named Idan Alexander from New Jersey. So we have so many, and a grandfather named Keith, 65 from North Carolina. So I'm still in it because these are our people, and all the 100 are our people. It's a humanitarian crisis. Abigail was released 1 year ago plus, last November, at the end of November, with a ceasefire that brought home 105 women and children. And since then, there's been no deal that has stuck, and nobody has been released. And so here we are now at this time where we have the outgoing Biden administration who've been working on this day in and day out, but have not gotten a second deal. And here you have President-elect Trump coming, and he's like, they'll be hell to pay. And he has said these hostages and this fighting has to cease, but these hostages must be released. And so I think that it's a unique opportunity where we have kept the hostage issue bipartisan because we have really wanted it to be a humanitarian American issue versus left or right. And here we see this example of the outgoing Biden administration and the incoming President Trump administration, and they are coordinated and they are both working. But you also have a new voice, a very powerful, strong, and an influential voice in President Trump. And that's an important moment that we're in.
No doubt.
Liz, I want to ask you about another devastating impact of what happened on October 7th, and that is the ignorance that we have witnessed since then, especially here in the United States, a Judeo-Christian country that is supposed to be the greatest ally to Israel. There has been an epidemic of ignorance on college campuses in particular. How do we fix or at least ameliorate that issue so that there is some silver lining that is a learning experience here?
Well, it's such a good question, and we could spend a lot of time, but and thank you for asking it because it's important. So writing this book was to tell the truth, because on October 8th, we already saw the lies. We saw people saying that it didn't happen or they rewrote it. But we also saw on October 7th that Hamas terrorists wore GoPros and they were taking videos of what they did. So there's a truth to what they did and the horrendous murdering of people at levels, if you brought it to America, that were in the tens of thousands. And so I come back to you and I say, here we are now. And our role as like my role is to help bring home these hostages, but to tell the truth so that people with a narrative that isn't the truth, like you have spoken about on the campuses, don't get that voice. But what I will tell you is the majority of Americans, the majority of people, even on college campuses, have been supportive of hostage families, supportive of Israel. Now, we need their voices to become bigger and stronger. And one of the things I remind people is that we have a voice, we're Americans, and that we need to speak out. But the voices that are telling something that didn't happen and actually looking at a beautiful 3-year-old child and saying she is a perpetrator of something is just not okay. So I think that what it's going to take is a lot of Americans and a lot of people speaking up. And I think there's also a young group of especially Jewish and Christian young people that are really coming together, especially this year on campus, finding their voices and speaking out against this and not letting a minority that is very loud on these campuses and very evil to take over, but to actually tell the truth and to talk about what it is that we have in common as humans, but that it starts with the truth.
Liz, you mentioned this unique window that we're in the last 20 days or 25 days of the Biden presidency. They negotiated one deal. They're trying to get a second deal. There's sort of the big stick coming with Donald Trump. Tell us what could happen in these 20 days, what we should be watching for potential signs of progress.
Okay, so that's a really great question. And, the one thing I like to remind people is these people who are held hostage, they're not above ground. They're not fed. They have no medical attention. They've had no signs of life. Nobody like the ICRC, any group has gone in to see who they are or how they are. So these people, as we know, because we've seen some of the people who were executed and taken out. And these young people were half of their body size, half of their body weight. So when you talk about the 25 more days, the thing I like to remind everybody is like, they can't wait. They've been killed by Hamas, they've been executed, and they're dying. And so there is a push to keep pushing this to happen any day. And what I think we need to look for is continued pressure on Hamas by the Gulf region, by the Arab nations that are part of the Abraham Accord, right. Pressure through President Trump and through President Biden, but really on those Arab countries, especially seeing that Hamas has really been decimated. Hezbollah has been decimated, Syria, we saw the Assad regime fall, Iran has been weakened. So right now, Hamas is really on its own and they don't have very much support. The people in Gaza are starving. The people in Gaza are suffering, all because of Hamas. So I think the pressure needs to continue to be on Hamas to make a deal, but it also needs to continue to be on Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Israelis to bring home these loved ones, to bring home these people who were taken 446 days ago. But I think we're going to see signs of more and more pressure because people understand we've got to bring them home and we need to stop this fighting and figure out a way forward.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Liz, I want to ask you about the mindset of people in Israel. I went to an organization's benefit a few weeks ago in Los Angeles that benefits the hostages who have been returned home, but it was an effort to treat them for psychological issues like PTSD. When it comes to what these hostages are suffering from in this specific conflict, but from others as well, how much of an impact does that have on the people of Israel, and how much are they relying on the United States to help in that issue as well? So the people in Israel are suffering. There's no doubt. Like there is trauma. When a little girl like Abigail is running to a bomb shelter a few times a week, and then also on top of it asking if the Hamas terrorists are going to find her there, that just kind of tells you where people are at and where kids are at. But these kids are running in the middle of the night. They're going to the shelters and they have to wake up and go to school the next day. But the one thing that I will say that is really beautiful about the Israeli people is that the Israeli people take care of each other. And we have seen so much love, support, therapy, meals, care that have been given to the Israelis by Israelis. There's this thing called there's a hostage family forum in Tel Aviv. People can donate money and time, and then that goes to help the families who have been returned, but it also goes to help those children
whose fathers are still in Gaza, those parents whose kids, daughters and sons are still in Gaza being abused. And so we see so much of this amazing, beautiful support that comes people to people. And it comes also from diaspora Jews and from the Christian and evangelical communities outside of Israel that are supporting Israel and supporting these organizations and the people. And it goes back to your earlier question. There are many more people that love, support, and are showing it for the people of Israel and for the Jewish people. And that is the step. It doesn't make the news, but you've given me this opportunity. And I really want people to know that is what has kept so many families going, both emotionally, physically, and also this hostage movement until we bring home everyone. And even when they come home, and you know this, Amanda, like the therapy that will be needed for generations to grow up. So thank you for asking that.
Where can
Absolutely.
we, if anyone's watching today and they want to donate or make a difference in this difficult period, what's the best way for them to join the fight?
Look, I think first, elevate these stories on social media, share them. We need people to know 7 of our fellow Americans are hostages. 100 people, infants, young people, and grandparents. And we need to make sure that there is a pressure and that people know in America and beyond that this is a crisis. It's a humanitarian crisis. But as far as being supportive, I think, look, right now, the Hostage Family Forum is a really ideal location. And they take small donations, but they just take everyone's support. And they are doing the work both to get hostages out, but also to help treat the hostage families and to be there as a life support. And I think that's an important place at this moment.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And education is a big part of supporting it as well, which is why I encourage our entire audience to go out and buy Saving Abigail. Liz Hirsch Naftali, thank you so much for being here. We're so glad that Abigail is home, but we will be thinking about and praying for the other hostages that need to be released as well. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you very much. It really means a lot to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, everybody, we've got to take a quick commercial break, but on the other side, we're going to be talking to one of the candidates who is looking to fill Matt Gaetz' former seat. Be right back.
Hey, America, you've heard me talking about a despicable crime that the FBI calls house stealing. It's title fraud, and it's a growing crime, becoming a very serious problem from homeowners. In fact, a district attorney in California recently said that title fraud cases in his small county have gone from virtually none to 73 in just 18 months. Now, if you own a home or any property, your title and the hard-earned equity you've built are at serious risk. Now, how do they do it? With just one document, a forged signature, and a phony notary stamp, a bad guy can take legal ownership of your home and take out loans against it. Just like that, poof, your biggest asset could be gone, and it can happen without you even knowing. But there's a way to help stop them. I trust our friends at Home Title Lock to make sure you're not already a victim of this terrible crime. Sign up today using the promo code JUSTNEWS at HometitleLock.com, and you'll get a free title history report and a 30-day free trial of their exclusive triple lock protection, giving you 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts, and the best part, if God forbid fraud does ever happen, Home Title Lock's U.S.-based team works fast to restore your home at no additional cost to you. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code JUSTNEWS to protect your home, your equity, and get a peace of mind. Go do it today. All right, America, welcome back. We've got an interesting race ahead of us in Florida. Yep, open house seat, Matt Gaetz' house seat in Florida. And joining us now, the entrepreneur, the host of Grassroots Truthcast podcast, which is a really fun podcast, and one of the candidates for Congress for that seat. He is our good friend, Gene Valentino. Gene, great to have you on the show.
Hi, John, Amanda. Great to be with you.
All right, you've lived in this district a long time. I don't think a lot of people thought a year ago, hey, this would be an open seat, but it is. Tell us why you jumped in. What's the sentiments in the district right now?
Well, thank you for having me. I didn't think it was going to be open, and it wasn't a topic of a priority a year ago when Matt Gaetz was going for Attorney General and then backed out altogether. The seat became a special election, which is coming up on short order, January 28th. There's about 8 to 10 Republicans in the race. So the Republican primary is key. It's 7-1, 8-1 Republican over Democrat in this panhandle. Yeah. This is Florida District number 1, which is referred to as the panhandle from the Alabama border on the west over to Panama City.
An important
Yeah,
district.
and that's a beautiful area of the country. I know you've lived there 35 years. Tell us about your engagement in the community, because I would imagine after nearly 4 decades, you've got relationships with a lot of people there.
Well, we came to town on business. We had several companies. We've hired thousands of people in different niche businesses we've created, and we were contributors in the community. The community asked me to step up and run for county commissioner. I did. So for 2 terms, 8 years, I was your county commissioner here in Escambia County, Florida. The main seat is Pensacola in Escambia, but there's 3 counties to the east of Escambia: Santa Rosa, Okaloosa, and Walton. And when I was commissioner, we did a lot of infrastructure projects. Senator Rick Scott was Governor Rick Scott at the time. We collaborated well in getting capital dollars in place for roads and bridges. And the biggest thing, economic development, and even bigger, the locals who want to make sure the beaches stay protected, pristine, and unharmed by urban blight, as they say. So we're going to do that. We're going to help protect Donald Trump's backside, support his MAGA agenda, absolutely, without equivocation. And at the same time, we're going to focus on some local issues. The big one locally here in the area, you asked, happens to be the veterans. We've got 5, 6 different military establishments in this panhandle people don't realize, trillions of dollars of American assets. And the veteran needs some help. He needs to be nourished, re-injected into the process of helping to bring in more new enlistees and people into the military armed services with pride and honor and dignity, and not walk away from it demoralized. The Veterans Hospital, therefore, is at the top of my list to be expanded as a full 24/7 hospital medical system.
Yeah, pretty important in that region of the country for sure. Gene, there was the report released on Matt Gaetz last week. We saw the reaction in Washington, but sometimes it's hard to gauge the reaction back home. Tell us how people in the district reacted to. Where are their minds on? What are they focused on?
Well, a lot of people, there's misgivings. It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? I mean, Donald Trump could not have asked for a more loyal person watching his backside. Matt Gaetz fell on the sword for Donald Trump on more than one occasion, and I'm proud of Matt Gaetz with that. Where I differ from Matt Gaetz is that, let's just say I know when to use the feather and I know when to use the chainsaw. And the problem is you don't need the chainsaw all the time. Matt Gaetz was an avid, loyal supporter of Donald Trump, as I plan to be. But there's many things that are needed back here in the district that have gone unnoticed and unaddressed over the decade, and I plan to step in and do something about it.
Great.
Gene, before we let you go, I know you have a heart for veterans, and this is an area that has a very high concentration of our country's service members. And I know you draw a direct connection between the treatment of our veterans and military recruitment. Tell us about that.
So important.
Yeah, that to me, I think you want the best salesman for the United States military? It's the veteran. The veteran who, I'm not talking about the veteran who was spat upon during the Vietnam era, coming off the airplane by the Jane Fondas of the world. I'm talking about the veteran who died for this country, and those guys need to feel that they are the best inspiration for the next generation of military enlistees. The military recruitment plan should have a funding mechanism in place to put the veteran at the top of the list, take them out of tent city, take them out of the alcohol and drug rehab clinics, and gentrify them back into the community, part and parcel of a recruitment enlistment strategy to bring in a whole new generation of enlistees. That's how you address the military. That's how you set it up for future success.
Yeah, Gene, I couldn't agree more with you. When I'm in a group full of young people, I ask them, how many are considered going into the military? much fewer hands than any other generation in my lifetime. And they always say, then I say, well, why aren't you? And they're like, we're worried about the way the last generation of soldiers have been treated. You fix that, you fix recruiting in a big way. It's a brilliant idea you have.
Well,
there.
it's already turned. Donald Trump has just because he's coming back on board, enlistments are back up. So we're all excited about that.
Yeah, it's a big moment.
22 suicides per day.
Yeah.
That needs to change.
That's unacceptable in this great country. Real quickly, Gene, how do people get to your campaign if they want to support you?
Oh, thank you, sir. At www.valentinoforcongress.com. That's Valentino, F-O-R, Congress.com. There you can contribute if you'd like. You'll also get more detail on what we did not talk about, and that's how we plan to protect Donald Trump's MAGA agenda, which was the dictate of the nation. They want him back to execute on that agenda. I'll be watching his backside.
We know you got a busy start to the new year, but we want to wish you a happy new year nonetheless. Gene, thanks for joining us. Good to have you on tonight.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, real honor to have you on. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. You know Donald Trump wants to make America healthy again. We want to help in that process. We got a great conversation around the corner right after these messages.
Welcome back, everybody. As many of you know who watch this TV show or listen to my podcast, I've gone just a little bit woo-woo, and that means that I have done, I think, a pretty good amount of cleaning up my diet and just in general trying to make sure that I am supplementing my body with all of the things that I'm just not getting from traditional food that you get from the grocery store. Of course, all the processed food. And there are some vital things that I've added into my routine that I am absolutely in love with, and they all come from Native Path. And I'm so excited to bring in our guest today. He's the founder and chief culture officer there at Native Path, Dr. Chad Walding. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, Amanda. Thank you. It's so good to be here.
I want to first start off with your story, your background, and why you got involved with Native Path.
Yeah, so I'm a physical therapist. I'm a doctor of physical therapy. And what really got my attention was my experience in conventional healthcare. You know, as physical therapists, they have you go and do internships all around the country. And my first internship was at a heart hospital in Houston, Texas, world renowned for its treatment of heart disease. And on the first floor of this heart hospital was a McDonald's. And I walked in, I was just really confused about why a McDonald's was in a heart hospital. I didn't know much about nutrition at the time, but I was an athlete, and I knew that eating McDonald's didn't make me feel good. I could observe people eating McDonald's typically were overweight, and maybe the type of people that would have a confused. I would treat patients who would get out of heart surgery, and they would ask me to wheel them down to McDonald's, and I would take them down there. I would see other patients eating it, and then I would see doctors and nurses also eating it. So I was very confused about this. And there's this Wendell Berry quote that really got my attention, that we have a health industry that does nothing about food, and a food industry that knows nothing about health. And I kept seeing that play out in my experience as a conventional healthcare practitioner. Very big on treating symptoms and not really getting to the root of the problem. And if you look at the changes that have happened in the past 100 years with health of humans in America, everything has gotten worse, from obesity to diabetes to cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's. Everything has gone worse despite our advances in technology, right? And then, so that got my attention. And then I started learning about the health of our ancestors who, when they were eating and moving and living the way they had been doing, you know, for the past 200, 300 years, but even before that, they were pretty much free of a lot of these metabolic type issues that we're trying so hard to fix today. I started eating different. I started moving different. I started giving lectures and putting out content and speaking at businesses and gyms. That process, we started on education, just getting people to, what we say, get on the path to eat, move, and live in harmony with nature and in alignment with your own biology. And we started to see traction. We grew. You know, our customers started asking us about products. We looked at the things that were missing in our human diet, in our modern day diet. Started asking ourselves, how can we fill in the gaps to help people feel better? And collagen was one of the first ones that we came out with, you know. And then now we have over 40 products. We have a huge company now with over 115 people. And we're very much here to guide people, right? To get them back on the path, because we recognize the environment, the world we grew up in has very much left humans off the path. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me and how we started Native Path and why we're here.
I love that. And just for our audience, let me tell you guys the products that I use. I start off with just the powder collagen, then I mix in my coffee. You can't taste it at all. And it dissolves very, very easily. I use the krill oil supplement along with all my supplements that I take around dinner time. I have the nighttime collagen that I have never had such great sleep in my life. It just absolutely knocks me out, but I wake up feeling refreshed. The electrolytes and the aminos, which is interesting because typically when I've tried powder electrolytes, they taste really salty and you can't even hardly get past the saltiness to actually enjoy any kind of flavor. Y'all's aren't like that. How did you get around it?
Well, because a lot of them are, like you say, too salty. And for a lot of people, it has way more salt than you need, and we have like a fourth of what I think most things do. And we everything in our products is sweetened as naturally as it can possibly be. Like we like to say, we keep everything as close to nature as possible, and we put a priority on purity. There's no artificial flavors or GMOs or red dye number 5 or anything like that. Our philosophy around food, supplements, all of it is keep things as close to nature as possible and let biology do its thing. Let the vitamins and minerals do its thing, and not cut cost on cheap, ineffective things that are just not functional fillers. That's what a lot of people are doing. A lot of companies are doing that. So you're just noticing the difference in the real food quality.
Yeah, and I want to get into the collagen thing for a minute because there are a lot of people who have moved into this space where that's a part of their routine now. They mix it in with coffee or a protein shake or something like that. Why is collagen important?
So collagen is the most important protein I think you can have. It's the most. It's everything, right? It makes up your hair, your skin, your tendons, your joints, your ligaments. Your bones are even made up of collagen. Your digestive lining is made up of collagen. So it's a big part of what makes up the structure and the matter of our bodies. But in our modern diet, we're extremely deficient in collagen, right? Our ancestors, as we were talking 100, 200 years ago, they would get plenty of collagen in their diets naturally because they would eat all parts of an animal. They would take bones of an animal, they make broth, collagen would seep out into that, they'd make soups, and they would get plenty of it naturally. In our modern diets, with these processed and refined foods, we're not getting near enough protein, and we're definitely not getting near enough collagen. So we're not getting the raw materials that we need. The other thing about collagen, we can produce it on our own, but our natural production of it begins to decline around the age of 20 by about 1.5% per year. So as we age, it becomes more and more important that we start supplementing with collagen in order to keep our bodies together and feeling good and moving well. And I would see it all the time as a physical therapist. People would come to me because they're in pain, they're hurting, or they just had a surgery, or they're trying to avoid a surgery. And that's when I started recommending collagen. And back then, this was like 15, 20 years ago, I would just recommend people start having broths and things like that. They would always have better outcomes. They would recover faster. They would get out of pain faster. So it got me really looking at collagen in a big way as one of the things that we're most efficient in. And if we start consuming it, everything else in our body starts working better. And I really mean that from our brains and the cognition to our heart health. There's components in all these structures that are made up of collagen, to how well we process and eliminate our food, from joint pain to hip pain to back pain, all these things. Bone health, big thing that depends on quality of collagen consumption. So to me, it's one of those things. It's the one thing, if you do that, if you get enough collagen, everything else about your health, the way your body feels, the way it moves, it begins to get better.
Absolutely. And I always hear from orthos, motion is lotion, and these collagen products have helped me with motion so that, when I'm working out and I'm exercising, I don't have any joint pain or anything like that. It's definitely helped my skin. My hair is feeling definitely more vivacious these days. So Dr. Chad Walding, thanks so much for being here. And everybody, make sure you go to getnativepath.com/justnews. I love all of their products, and you're going to love them too. Dr. Chad, we'll have you back on again very soon. Thanks so much for this partnership.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda.
Take care. All right, everybody, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back on the other side. Welcome back, everybody. Just a few topics to hit before we head out for this evening. John, that picture from 2013 that is now public of Joe and Hunter and she sitting in a tree along with the VP. You're like, I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. This speaks to a string of lies by Joe Biden, where he repeatedly tells the American people that he not only did he not have anything to do with his son's business dealings, he wasn't present, he didn't know anything about it. And this smacks in the face of that narrative for his entire presidency. Yeah,
listen, and people forget in 2013 she had just taken over. It's like a really super sensitive diplomatic mission, and he's bringing his son, who's got a cocaine addiction problem, has been kicked out of the Navy, and I don't know what the Chinese were thinking. Whether they're thinking, wow, it's kind of a low rent district, I don't know. But there's a direct tie to this photo and what we were just talking about with Donald Trump. When he's talking about the Panama Canal, he's talking about countering Chinese influence. That Chinese influence went on steroids during the Obama and the Biden years because there was no pushback. There was all sort of a softness in American resolve. And China has made so much advances in Africa and Latin America, right in our backyard. And I think that's why Donald Trump is trying to reset that security zone around America with discussions like Panama and Greenland and other places. And so that photo isn't just a reminder of the grift. I think it's also a reminder of the fact that on Joe Biden's watch, China gained an extraordinary leg up in the world that it didn't have before then.
Yeah. All right, let's stay down in that general region. The 33-year-old Guatemalan who set the woman. This story is just appalling, and every time the video pops up on my X feed, I just have to scroll past it. I just can't do it. I can't watch the video. But Marjorie Taylor Greene, along with a number of other members of Congress, including Anna Paulina Luna and Andy Biggs, have called for death penalty, very swift trial. What are your thoughts on this, John?
Well, listen, it's a reminder of the type of people that have crossed our border on Joe Biden's watch and during the whole open border era. And I think that it not only horrifies the conscious to think that there's a person so depraved that they set a woman who was sleeping innocently on the subway on fire, but they would sit there and watch it to the end and then walk off like it was some video game. Tom Homan's got one of the most important jobs in the Trump administration. He's a determined guy, and he's going to get creeps like this out of the country really quick and really fast, or at least rounded up in prison where they can do less harm. But the mission is so big, and there are probably thousands of others like this. You start looking at the serious crime statistics that John Lott and others have put out about illegal aliens, and it's a bad bunch, and that has gotten in here. Historically, not the numbers haven't been as high as the criminals who come in under Joe Biden. And I think that the mission ahead for Donald Trump is mission number one. People are counting on him to get that fixed first. And I think Tom Homan's the guy that's going to get it done.
I think so, too. This is going to be a top priority because people are sick and tired of hearing stories like this. It's devastating for the family, but I think the country is just completely nauseous over hearing this.
I got one for you. I've been meaning to ask all that. I meant to call you, and I didn't get to do it. All right, Donald Trump wants to annex Canada and make it the 51st state. Was he just trolling Trudeau?
Look, I have mixed feelings on this because I love Canada. I love my Canadian in-laws, and obviously they love their country, and I do think that Canada should remain its own nation. However, there's a whole lot of land up there and a whole lot of great hunting, a lot of mountains, beautiful resources, a lot of oil, and a lot of cattle. So let me just say, when it comes to Donald Trump's agenda and a lot of the things that red-blooded Americans value, there's a whole lot of it up there in Canada. Now, when it comes to them having a voting voice in Congress or in our elections, I don't know if we want to go that far. Maybe, yeah. I don't think we should go that far. But John,
Wayne Gretzky for Prime Minister, though. What do you think? Wayne Gretzky, the great one.
You read my mind. That's what I was going to finish with. Now, this is the funny thing. When I first met my Canadian husband, I referred to the great one. However, I had just finished watching the Sunday shows on Fox News, and I was talking about Mark Levin. And my husband was like, Amanda,
Yeah.
That's not the great one. I'm
It
like, well,
means
that's what he
something
calls
really
himself
different in
now,
Canada,
obviously.
doesn't it?
Indeed. The great one is Wayne Gretzky,
He
and
is.
there are a lot of Canadians who absolutely adore him. And I'm pretty sure Wayne Gretzky, despite the fact that he has absolutely zero governmental experience, and perhaps because he has zero governmental experience,
be
I
more
think he would
effective,
make
huh?
a great prime minister. And I think he and Donald Trump will get along famously as
Yeah, I agree.
world leaders for our neighboring nations.
That would be a fun bunch. Canada used to have a lot of freedom too. Unfortunately, that's been diminished a lot in the last few years. So something to be looking forward to.
Yeah, well, the problem is that in Canadian culture, they're just too nice, and they gave up a lot of their guns. And you know, what do you expect to happen? Because that's typically the beginning of the end of many of your rights, and that's unfortunately what we're seeing there. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us on this Thursday evening of Boxing Day. Hope you have a wonderful evening. We'll be back here tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern on